Hey readers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire Books, and today I'm going to be reviewing The Latinist by Mark Prins. When I saw the premise for this book, I knew I absolutely had to read it. I was a classics major. I was classics adjacent in grad school. My PhD is in ancient Christianity, and I know how it feels to care about ancient texts and to look at their minutiae and to be really dependent on your advisor, which is where this book is going. So the premise of this book is that Tessa, who is a PhD student on the brink of finishing, she's on the brink of a great career, isn't getting any job offers, and she can't figure out why until she gets an email that tells her that her advisor has been writing a bad letter for her and screwing her out of jobs. And so the entire rest of the book flows from this. So this is the spoiler-free part of my review. I'm just giving you the premise, and then we're not gonna go into details. However, I do want to talk about details after that, so I'll warn you when I start with spoilers in case you don't want to spoil yourself. So basically, this book is about the dance of power between a grad student who does not have very much power and an advisor who seems to have all of the power, and Tessa has to figure out what to do. She has to figure out what to do with her career, she has to figure out what to do with a failed relationship, and she has to figure out what to do with her creepy professor. This is meant to be a modern retelling inspired by the Apollo and Daphne myth from Ovid. So that is a myth in which Apollo is hit by Cupid's arrow. He falls in love with a nymph who does not want him. And he chases her and chases her and chases her. He's not going to let her go. She prays to her father to help her escape, and her father turns her into a laurel tree rather than have her remain in her former body and get violated by Apollo. So the laurel then becomes Apollo's trophy tree, and that's what's given to victors in competitions, which is also gross if you think about it, because Daphne didn't consent to anything, and Apollo chased her and ruined her life and made her be a tree, and then took her leaves and used them for stuff. Hot. So if you have never heard that story before, go read it in Ovid. It's horrifying and beautiful at the same time, which is pretty much Ovid for you. But this is a modern retelling where this woman is doing this hardcore classics work. She feels like she's had a great bond with her advisor, and that bond is betrayed. So if you have ever been in a situation like that, you will really identify with a lot of what's going on in this book, and it's viscerally painful to read, but like in a good way. That said, I think that this book could have been great, but that it really dropped the ball in a few places that I'll speak about in more detail in the spoiler part of this review. But for now, suffice it to say, I think that it handled the way that she responds to the professor in a way that was not authentic for somebody who has been abused by an advisor. I think that she got input from a female friend that was similarly tone deaf. And I thought that the ending really went off the rails and did not bring what was really happening to a satisfying conclusion. It was like this wanted to be a weird combination of something that was more like Donna Tartt's Secret History, where you get like the creeping horror of a classics department that starts out very charismatic. But it also kind of wanted to have like a big, let's have an adventure, solve the mystery, treasure hunt kind of aspect to the story as well, which as an academic, that's not how academic work works. What are you talking about? But the other thing is that it didn't feel right with this story and the stress that the main character was going under. I also did think that some of her responses to this professor were inauthentic in ways that were problematic. I do question the ability of Mark Prins as a white man to adequately capture the horror of being a woman in the situation that Tessa is in. And I think that some of his mischaracterizations do stem from that. That said, it's an entertaining book. If you don't really want to read about the minutia of a fake classical argument as part of the plotline, you might not like this. But if you're into academic stuff and into watching scholars do scholar things in books with some pretty high drama, this will entertain you. I just thought that it could have been great, and it was good instead. So if the premise interests you and you have the time to read it, I wouldn't say that I don't recommend it. It was fun. I do think that it dropped the ball in some pretty serious places. So I want to get into that in detail now. If you don't want this book spoiled for you, leave the review. Bye. Volley. Come back and then tell me if you agree with me after you've read the book. If you just want me to spoil it for you, that's fine. Continue. Or if you've read it, welcome. Let's talk about what happened in this sucker. All right, so, okay, let's get blunt. I think that there were some major problems with the way that this book handled the sexual attraction factor between Chris and Tessa. So Chris, the professor, is a freaking creep. And I was horrified that Tessa's friend, Lucrezia, tells her, well, I mean, he's not unattractive, and like kind of talks about it like being in a relationship with her creepy ass professor wouldn't be such a bad thing. WTF? No. Nobody's friend would ever do that. And like the fact that she didn't seem to believe Tessa about the letter, like, first of all, I would have sent that letter to my friend immediately and we would have read it and been like, what the hell together. But like, I think that Prins was trying to capture victim blaming and people not believing victims in a way that was real, but it didn't come off real because these women were already supposed to be friends. And so it just, it didn't quite work for me. Actually, a lot of the Lucrezia plotline did not work for me. Tessa in no way would have really been able to crash an archaeological site, do a full investigation, get people to hide that for her, and then try to get an academic scoop the way that she does in this book. It's totally unrealistic. It's very weird. And I didn't really like it. Like, don't try to make something authentically academic and then try to pull that in your plotline. Just let it be the Da Vinci Code or something if that's what you want to do. If you want to stick to like the typical Ivy League drama, or in this case, the Oxbridge drama, then you should have stuck with what you were doing in the first part of the book. So this plotline does, even though it's ridiculous, lead to some fun parts. So, you know, when Tessa manages to embarrass Chris, who tries to scoop her presentation at an academic conference, and that she messes his paper up and destroys his reputation. Like, all that stuff was entertaining, and there's definitely like a little bit of revenge fantasy about it. But I also just didn't feel that it was authentic as somebody who's like been to these conferences. Rarely are they that dramatic, or does anybody even give a crap about what people are saying that much, to be real. But I think what really bothered me the most was the ending. I absolutely hated that Tessa went from avoiding this professor, trying to go behind his back, doing a huge dramatic overthrow of him in her paper at this conference. And then she goes to his mother's funeral, babies him afterwards, and then fucks him? What the heck? That was, what on earth? Like, that was absolutely offensive to me that happened. I'm sorry, but if somebody's treating you that way and they're your professor and you didn't want to have a sexual relationship with them and it was never something that crossed your mind and he's been abusing you, like, on what planet is that what you would put into the story? I don't know. I mean, maybe there are people who would do that, but that did not feel authentic to this story. And I was really grossed out that it happened. And again, this is one of those things that it annoyed me that the author was a man mining women's difficulties for this story who chose to put that plot line in. I just, that's just not quite right. It really bothered me. I did not like it. I'm not saying I would not recommend this book or that I would never read another book by Mark Prins, but I think he really misstepped here in terms of what he artistically had license to say that was meaningful about women. And the other thing is that at the end of the book, you know, I mean, yeah, okay, it's like, ooh, the symbolism of Daphne not being able to talk, but now let's flip it and make sure that Chris Eccles can't talk. You know, at the end, Tessa finds out for real that he was peeping her emails, which we've known the whole book. So she bangs her professor, finds out for sure that he was peeping her emails, which she wasn't sure about earlier. So why would you get naked with this person? And then he tries to rape her. So she hits him in the head and causes him such a traumatic brain injury that he may never speak again. This is just so not satisfying. Like, why is that the right vengeance? Especially in a world where women look for justice through traditional channels so hard. I would have rather seen him be destroyed by what she did at the conference, or by actually managing to get a complaint through, or by getting some sort of justice that didn't involve her doing something that would have put her on the wrong side of the law if people knew. It felt like a non sequitur to me. It felt cheap to me. And it was like entertaining, but it didn't really work. And also didn't really work within academia. Like, I'm sorry, but when a famous advisor dies, they don't just put his like green student into his job. They do an outside hire for somebody else and then bring somebody of similar academic weight into the conversation. So yeah, all of this just kind of struck me as off in a lot of ways. Like it was like listening to a piece that I thought I was going to enjoy, but a lot of the notes were off key. So it was entertaining. I don't regret reading it, but I also think that it was a book that was an amusement that could have been a masterpiece, and that will always bother me about this book. So that is my review of The Latinist by Mark Prins. Definitely read it if this kind of thing entertains you, but if you only want the cream of the crop for academic drama, then I don't think this one hit the bar. Just go back and read The Secret History again. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. And most of all, happy reading.